When I say the name Faye Dunaway, what comes to mind? If your first thought is, I don't know who that is, baby, it's time to get educated. But if your first thought was this,
no wire hangers ever!
Or this,
La La Land,
or this, then we need to talk. Nowadays, it seems Faye Dunaway is only remembered for the worst reasons. But trust when I say there is so much more to her than stupid controversies or being the queen of camp. Her career has had such a massive impact on film and culture as we know it, and I'm here to show you how she did it, and why it matters that we get her story right. So please, allow me to take you through the life and legacy of the iconic Faye Dunaway. Okay, so quick intro. Faye Dunaway was born on January 14th, 1941 in Bascom, Florida. Her acting career began in college at Boston University, where she would go on to graduate with a BFA in theater. She first started, like all great actors do, on the stage. At 21, she took acting classes at the American National Theater and Academy. There, she would be spotted by respected theater director Lloyd Richards while performing in a production of The Crucible. Richards then recommended her to director Elia Kazan, who was searching for young talent for his Lincoln Center repertory company. She would spend 3 years there while continuing her career in acting. She first appeared on Broadway as a replacement in A Man for All Seasons, then in Arthur Miller's After the Fall. She would catch her big break in 1965 for her performance in Hogan's Goat, winning a Theater World Award, which recognizes outstanding New York City stage debut performances. She landed her first film role in 1967's The Happening, and followed this with Hurry Sundown. While these didn't receive great reviews, Faye was certainly starting to gain attention in Hollywood, and was even nominated for the Golden Globe New Star of the Year, a since discontinued award. But she wouldn't truly arrive until Bonnie and Clyde tells a story of Bonnie Parker and Clyde Burrows. Based on true events, the film takes us on a journey of their prolific crime spree and love affair through 1930s rural Texas. Faye beat out several highly talented actresses for the part, but was also lucky that Jane Fonda, Natalie Wood, and Tuesday Weld turned it down. At one point, even Shirley MacLaine, Warren Beatty's sister, was a viable candidate, but after Beatty cast himself as Clyde, that was no longer an option. Fun fact, apparently Cher auditioned for this role too. To say this film had a big impact on Hollywood would be an understatement. Its overt sexuality, graphic violence, and European style were so groundbreaking and unlike anything American audiences had seen before. Whereas most film shootings of the time were bloodless and painless, Bonnie and Clyde's death scene was one of the first gory scenes many Americans were exposed to. The film is also overtly sexual, with plenty of phallic imagery and acknowledgement of Faye's innate sexuality. The final product is actually more toned down than what Beatty originally wanted. In the beginning, Clyde was written as a bisexual, and there was going to be a scene in which Bonnie and Clyde had a threesome with another man. Producers suggested they scrap it, as his homosexuality would alienate audiences from what was already a provocative film. At the time of release, critics were divided on what to think about this movie that was so different from anything of its time. Most reviews were largely negative. Variety's Dave Kaufman said the robbers were portrayed as the bumbling, moronic type. The New York Times' Bosley Crowther called it a cheap piece of bald-faced slapstick comedy that treats the hideous depredations of that sleazy, moronic pair as the jazz-age cut-ups in thoroughly modern Millie. Time magazine criticized it as a strange and purposeless mingling of fact and claptrap that teeters uneasily on the brink of burlesque, whose plot rides off in all directions and ends up full of holes. Some had a more positive take. Pauline Kael of The New Yorker wrote, "Bonnie and Clyde is the most excitingly American movie since The Manchurian Candidate." She continued, "The audience is alive to it. Our experience as we watch it has some connection with the way we reacted to movies in childhood, with how we came to love them and to feel they were ours. Not an art that we learned over the years to appreciate, but simply and immediately ours." Roger Ebert echoed this sentiment, calling the film a milestone in the history of American movies, a work of truth and brilliance. Years from now, it is quite possible that Bonnie and Clyde will be seen as the definitive film of the 1960s, showing with sadness, humor, and unforgiving detail what one society had come to. Ultimately, Ebert's sentiment would become the one to resonate with American audiences. the film exploded onto the box office, raking in $70 million and receiving 10 Oscar nominations. What's more, the movie helped to usher in the style of new wave 70s films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Last Picture Show, Dog Day Afternoon, and many, many more. This movie was so groundbreaking, it even helped to topple the Hays Code, a strict production code that all films had to follow for decades prior. And while critics may have been divided by the film itself, almost everyone was in agreement about Dunaway's performance. In Kaufman's otherwise negative review, he said, "Miss Dunaway is a knockout as Bonnie Parker, registers with deep sensitivity in the love scenes, and conveys believability to her role." Ebert said, "Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway in the title roles surpass anything they have done on the screen before and establish themselves, somewhat to my surprise, as major actors." The Academy agreed, and in 1968, she received her first Best Actress nomination, although she ultimately lost to Katharine Hepburn in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. So in just her third film, Faye had proven she had what it took to become a star. She followed Bonnie and Clyde with The Thomas Crown Affair, where she stars as Vicki Anderson, an incredibly stylish insurance agent engaged in a game of cat and mouse with Thomas Crown, played by Steve McQueen. Critics largely agreed Dunaway and McQueen gave good performances in an otherwise lackluster film. And after recently watching it myself, I would say that's accurate. 1969 to 1973 would mark a bit of a stagnant period in her career. She was still making movies, but nothing was really garnering the success or attention of her previous works. The step back was also due in part to personal reasons.
You did Bonnie and Clyde, then you seemed missing for a while.
Yeah.
We all read you were in Italy.
Yeah.
Missing on purpose?
I went through a period of, well, I don't know, 5 years after. I would go through periods of working as much as I had to, and kind of having achieved an American dream of sorts. I mean, that sort of success is, that achievement of kind of our whole myth of success, and that all problems are solved and everything. And what in fact is true is that nothing changes. A few little things are easier, and there's a freedom that's not there that was there before. I mean, I think I grew up in a certain way, and I think many people in the society do, feeling that once you get the two-car garage, or once you get that, then everything's going to be okay, and the sun is going to be out. And that's just not true. It is our myth. When you get there, you're still going to have the problems, within yourself that you had the day before that, and there are things that you have to deal with, and they have to do with the very soul of your life, and how you live your life, and what you are to other people, and what they are to you, and how you relate on that level. And it has to do with love, So those kind of exterior things happening to you can make you more comfortable, and you can have, a nice coat, and you can have
coat
those things.
and
this sort
jumping
of
boots and coveralls and a fur coat.
Won't buy you love or happiness.
In 1972, she returned to the stage in Old Times and felt it gave her a much-needed change in her career. She later said, "Professionally, if I hadn't taken that step to go back to the stage in a serious way, I think I would have suffered for it." She followed Old Times with A Streetcar Named Desire, but in 1974, she really returned to the spotlight in Chinatown.
Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway in a Robert Evans production of a Roman Polanski film, Chinatown.
In the neo-noir classic Chinatown, Faye plays mysterious femme fatale Evelyn Mulroy. Considered one of the greatest films of all time, the story follows investigator J.J. Gittes, played by Jack Nicholson, after he is hired by Evelyn to investigate her husband, who she suspects of cheating. Gittes ends up finding way more than he anticipated, and the movie follows the mystery from there. Faye gives yet another outstanding performance, embodying the alluring and dangerous nature of this mystery woman, whose unknowable past the plot hinges on. Critics tended to focus more on Nicholson's performance, while remarking on Faye's beauty. However, A.D. Murphy wrote for Variety that, for Dunaway, this is her best part in years. She walked away with another Best Actress nomination, this time losing to Ellen Burstyn in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. The movie consistently ranks on the AFI's Top 100 film list, and is widely regarded as one of, if not the best film of the 1970s. It's been some time since I watched it, but I remember Faye's performance being excellent, and the ending twist being pretty good. With this film, however, came lots of controversy for Dunaway. She famously clashed with the film's director, Roman Polanski, throughout production. Most notably, there was an instance where he plucked a hair from her head because it was getting in the way of the shot, causing her to allegedly leave the set. In a Rolling Stone interview from that year, Polanski called her a gigantic pain in the ass and said she displayed certifiable proof of insanity. His comments are highly unprofessional, and in hindsight, he definitely needed to take a look in the mirror, to put it mildly. Dunaway would go on to say, "It was not the hair, it was the incessant cruelty that I felt, the constant sarcasm, the never-ending need to humiliate me." But to the public, all that mattered was Faye's director called her a pain in the ass. And thus, a diva narrative began that would stick for the next 40 years. Despite this, the 1970s would mark a truly prolific stretch of great performances from Faye. 1974's The Towering Inferno was a massive hit, which she followed with 1975's 3 Days at the Condor. Her next film, though, would make her a legend.
Network by Patty Chayefsky, directed by Sidney Lumet, produced by Howard Gottfried.
1976's Network tells the story of anchorman Howard Beale, who announces on national television he plans to kill himself in 2 weeks' time. The network, UBS, has a huge boost in their ratings and decides to take his show in a different direction, all while slowly losing their journalistic standards. Faye plays Diana Christensen, a work-obsessed TV producer willing to do whatever it takes for higher ratings. Her performance in this movie is absolutely stellar, and I cannot recommend it enough. She commits to the complete harshness of her character with total abandon, delivering a dramatic and funny performance, all while looking absolutely stunning. Vincent Canby of the New York Times said, "Ms. Dunaway, in particular, is successful in making touching and funny a woman of psychopathic ambition and lack of feeling." For her performance, she received her 3rd Best Actress Academy nomination and finally won it. She went on to say, "I will never forget the moment and the feeling when I heard my name. It was, without question, one of the most wonderful nights of my life. The Oscar represented the epitome of what I had struggled for and dreamt about since I was a child. The emotional rush of getting this accolade, the highest one this industry can award you, just hit me like a bomb. It was the symbol of everything I ever thought I wanted as an actress." This Oscar also produced the absolutely iconic The Morning After pictures, which were shot by Terry O'Neill, who would later become her husband. At the film's release, it received pretty mixed reviews, but today, Network is recognized as one of the most prescient films of its time, which strikes a scarily accurate chord with today's media and politics. The 40th anniversary of the film launched a tsunami of articles, praising the movie for its spot-on diagnosis of what our news media landscape would become, and that was in no small part due to Faye's performance. So, with Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, Network, and a host of other films, Faye Dunaway was a certified icon. Had her career followed a standard trajectory after the 80s, we'd be talking about her in the same way we do other stars of her era. But as we know, what followed after Network would be anything but normal. In 1981, Dunaway would star in Mommy Dearest, an adaptation of the book of the same name written by Christina Crawford, Joan Crawford's daughter. Directed by Frank Perry and produced by Frank Yablans, the three of them set out to make a serious movie about the harrowing experiences of child abuse and what could cause a mother to become this way. Well,
Tina! Bring me the axe!
Should have known you know where to find the boys and the booze.
No wire hangers! What's wire hangers doing in this closet when I told you no wire hangers ever? Barbara, please? Please, Barbara. Don't fuck with me, fellas! This ain't my first time at the rodeo.
suffice to say, that was not how the film was received. Critics essentially panned the film for its lack of depth and general unpleasantness. Roger Ebert said, "I can't imagine who would want to subject themselves to this movie. Mommy Dearest is a painful experience that drones on endlessly. It is unremittingly depressing, not to any purpose of drama or entertainment, but just to depress." Siskel of the Chicago Tribune said, "I don't think you can show such extraordinary behavior in a film about a famous person and not offer some answers. It's simply not responsible filmmaking, both intellectually and dramatically." Reception of Faye's performance was more mixed. Pauline Kael wrote, "Faye Dunaway gives a startling, ferocious performance in Mommy Dearest. It's deeper than an impersonation. She turns herself into Joan Crawford all right, but she's more Faye Dunaway than ever. She digs into herself and gets inside Joan Crawford in a way that only another torn, driven actress could. Has any movie queen ever gone this far before? Alone and self-mesmerized, she plays the entire film on emotion. Her performance is extravagant. It's operatic and full of primal anger. Others weren't as full of praise. A Variety article said of her performance, "Dunaway does not choose scenery. Dunaway starts neatly at each corner of the set in every scene and swallows it whole, co-stars and all." The public's reception was similarly split. The film was nominated for 7 Razzies and won 5, including Worst Picture and Worst Performing Actress. Ouch. Despite this, people seemed to be coming out in droves to see what was quickly becoming a cult classic. It gained $25 million at the box office and gained a whole new audience of people who saw it as excellent camp comedy. Today, it is especially loved by the gay community who see Dunaway's performance as a masterclass in camp. Unfortunately for Faye, the general public wasn't as forgiving. With her performance also came a mountain of bad press. She was blasted for her bad behavior on set, which included consistent tardiness and alleged generally rude behavior. And apparently the scene where she chokes out Christina became so physical the other actresses in the scene feared for their safety. This, coupled with the Chinatown press from years earlier, would cement her reputation as difficult. The shift in her career post-Mommy Dearest was sharp and immediate. She briefly returned to the stage before moving to England in 1983, and she just hasn't recaptured a string of good roles since. Her fiery performance, coupled with the diva label, caused the public to permanently see her persona as one thing. Faye would later echo this sentiment in her memoir, writing, "I know you have a life, and you act many roles, but after Mommy Dearest, my own personality and the memory of all my other roles got lost along the way in the mind of the public, and in the mind of many in Hollywood. It was a performance. That's all that it was. For better or worse, the roles we play become a part of our persona, and the actress and the woman are identified with that persona. People thought of me as being like her, and that was the unfortunate reality for me about this project." The bad press resulting from Mommy Dearest was harsh, but this kind of rhetoric surrounding Dunaway wasn't anything new. Since the beginning of her career, a narrative has stuck around that Faye is difficult to work with. And for me, it's difficult to try and figure out what to make of all of it. Starting with her second film, Hurry Sundown, the issues began. She clashed with the director, Otto Preminger, as she felt he didn't know anything about the process of acting, to the point where she pulled out of a contract for 6 films she agreed to make with him. She stated, "As much as it cost me to get out of the deal with Otto, if I'd had to do those movies with him, then I wouldn't have done Bonnie and Clyde, or The Thomas Crown Affair, or any of the movies I was suddenly in a position to choose to do. Beyond the movies I might have missed, it would have been a kind of Chinese water torture to have been stuck in 5 more terrible movies. It's impossible to assess the damage that might have done to me that early on in my career." And honestly, this makes a lot of sense to me. This probably was the best decision she could have made for her career. Why would she choose to stick around with someone she felt wouldn't get the best out of her talent and further her career? Like I said earlier, there was famous controversy following Chinatown, and apparently she had problems shooting Network too. To sum it up, wherever Faye went, it seemed bad press followed. Post-Mommy Dearest, the controversy did die down, but it seemed to be the only thing people wanted to talk about, despite Faye still doing good work every now and then. Her performance in Barfly is particularly interesting to look at. Leading up to the release of the 1987 film, she went on a press tour to promote the movie and her would-be comeback to stardom. But even in these interviews, reporters couldn't help but to exaggerate her larger-than-life status. A lengthy Vanity Fair article begins like this. The bedroom door opens. Dunaway appears. She pauses, using the middle distance to make a first impression. She's no longer the starved 26-year-old of Bonnie and Clyde, or the racehorse beauty of Chinatown. She's 46, and off-screen, she looks it. What the fuck? "Hello," she says, the voice deeper than I remember and more southern. She dismisses her surroundings, and by extension, her dilemma, with a wave of the hand. "This apartment hasn't caught up to me." The performance has begun. An hour later, the ashtray is littered with half-smoked cigarettes. Between us on the couch is a lipstick brush, which Dunaway has used a dozen times. In her hand is a pack of mints, which she raids when she's in danger of lighting a second cigarette while one's still burning. None of this evidence is indicative of a peaceful state of mind, but Dunaway insists she's never been more in control of her life. The rest of the article is a pretty standard look at her career, with occasional jabs at her personal life. But we can see this emphasis on her grandiose persona more than anything. The article opens with this narrative, and thus frames the rest of her story through this diva lens. It went the same way in a Washington Post article. It reads, "Her arms swinging, cigarette in hand, Faye Dunaway cuts across the flagstone floor of her New York apartment, the spikes of her high heels exploding like they were rigged with firecrackers. Faye Dunaway likes to make an entrance, and those strides of hers eat up a lot of ground. Before hitting her mark, though, there's a brief flourish off stage, a gargle of voices, a ruffling of the curtain, and then click, 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 click. There she is, wearing a bright scarlet miniskirt and matching jacket, standing in front of the sofa. Faye Dunaway isn't your ordinary, everyday garden variety star. Dunaway is like a force of nature, a nimbus of temperament, a hurricane. Emotions, big emotions, pour out of her. Drama pours off of her. There's drama in the way she lights a cigarette, which she does repeatedly, one after another. Drama in the way she laughs, head thrown back, the sound somewhere between a cough and a burst from a machine gun. Hoarse, robust, full of nervous intensity. Just sitting there on the sofa, she's dramatic. Again, there's this presentation of more than just an actress, an almost caricature of Dunaway. Despite this, the article would go on to praise her return to prestige films and a, quote, low-key Dunaway. Faye herself even stated, "I think it's finally buried, this bigger-than-life persona. Wanda, her character in Barfly, has done it, I think. But if she hadn't, I would have found some way to do it. You can damn well be sure of that." It really has put to rest what? I hate to call them the Crawford years, but the years where I was perceived as someone who was overly strong, overly dogmatic, cruel. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but I think that it's made me human again. Her belief in this feeling was warranted, as reviews for her performance were quite positive. Michael Wilmington of the LA Times wrote, "Dunaway's Wanda is the intense, passionate, beating heart of Barfly. There's something icily fine about Dunaway's vulnerability. She's so full of crazy longing and trapped hunger that she makes your skin prickle." Vincent Canby went even further, saying of her performance that it rediscovers the reserves of talent that in recent years have been hidden inside characters who wear designer wardrobes and sleep masks. But nothing really changed, and honestly, it makes me really sad. This movie seemed to be the start of a second act for Dunaway. Despite the emphasis on her persona, people were taking notice of her work, but more good roles just didn't come. And equally important, the controversy continued. I'm not going to chronicle in detail every single one of the articles that call her out or add to the diva mythos, because that really defeats the whole point of this video, but just know there are several. Most recently, there was the Oscar situation, her firing from Tea at 5, and then the lawsuit from her ex-assistant. In terms of severity, some of these issues are clearly not her fault. Others, I think, deserve some criticism. But all of this nuance isn't present in the current discourse. This diva narrative effectively seeks to erase the incredible work she has done for the last 50 years. I concede that she is certainly a perfectionist, and she probably has a flair for drama, let's say. But there's no reason this should have been blown up to the proportions it's at today. Thankfully, some people have pushed back. Her network director, Sidney Lumet, called her difficult labeling totally untrue and called her a selfless, devoted, and wonderful actress. Another one of her former directors, Elia Kazan, said, "The artist is rarely, if ever, satisfied. The artist is frequently grateful and intermittently amazed, but he or she is never satisfied. That Faye is unlikely to be satisfied with her efforts, or those with whom she works, is not caprice. It's not the willful misbehavior of a spoiled actress. This is how artists operate." Most importantly, Faye herself has stated, "God is in the details. I want to get it right." The fact is, a man can be difficult and people applaud him for trying to do a superior job. People say, well, gosh, he's got a lot of guts. He's a real man. And a woman can try and get it right, and she's a pain in the ass. It's my nature to do really good jobs, and I would never have been successful if I hadn't. At the end of the day, I think all she really cared about was the quality of the movie. She wants to get it right, and if she can, perfect. It was never about being a diva, whatever that even means. And I think it's crazy to continue that narrative. So what's the point of all this? Why am I going through the trouble of detailing the entire career of this woman that I'm sure many of you probably have never heard of? Well, to tell the truth, I am nothing if not a consumer of women-led media. I love exploring film, music, and pop culture from all different decades because it's just so fascinating to me. But I know lots of people my age just don't think that same way. They're more interested in modern celebrities and social media stars, which is fine, but it makes me kind of sad. There's such a rich history of women in media to be explored if people cared to find out. I don't want these legendary and iconic women who I love to learn about to be forgotten, and I definitely don't want them to be remembered for petty dramas when they've often done so much more than that, and should be celebrated for it. And that goes for more than just Faye Dunaway. I'll probably continue to make videos about actresses and artists from the 1950s to today because I just love it. But back to her, sure, there has been some drama with varying levels of severity, but ultimately, I wasn't there and neither were any of you. We can waste our time speculating on what could have happened behind the scenes, or we can watch and appreciate what did happen, which are Faye's performances. Along with the films I talked about more in depth, there were others in which she gave stellar performances. The Arrangement, The Eyes of Laura Mars, Gia, but that's not what people want to talk about when they talk about Faye Dunaway. I hope this video can help change that. At least you can walk out of this knowing her true legacy and impact, and hopefully pass that on to someone you know. When it's all said and done, her story won't change unless we change the way we tell it. Faye's impact on modern film and culture shouldn't be understated. And personally, I think we need to forget about this,
La La Land,
and remember more of this.
Hey, boy, what you doing with my mama's car? What's it like?
What you mean, prison?
No. Armed robbery. Shoot, I knew you never robbed a place, you faker. Well, I'm Miss Bonnie Parker, and this here's Mr. Clyde Barrow. We rob banks. We are just about the friendliest folks you would ever want to meet. Big old Texas Ranger waves his gun at us, and we just welcome him like he was one of our own. Loved me.
Look, I want you to meet. How do you get?
You know, it's been more than a year. You don't love me, don't call me, don't need me, don't pay me. You've a heart of stone, Jamie. You look terrible.
I don't see anyone for very long, Mr. Giddens. It's difficult for me. Now, I think you know all you need know about me. I didn't want publicity. I didn't want to go into any of this then or now. Is that all?
I don't know what you are talking about. This is the craziest, the most insane thing.
Stop it! I'm gonna make it easy for you. You were jealous. You had a fight. He fell. He hit his head. It was an accident. But his girl is a witness. So you had to shut her up. You don't have the guts to harm her, but you got the money to keep her mouth shut. Yes or no?
No!
I said I want the truth.
She's my sister. She's my daughter. My sister, my daughter.
I said I want the truth.
She's my sister and my daughter.
For God's sakes, Diana, we're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
The American people want somebody to articulate their rage for them. I've been telling you people since I took this job 6 months ago that I want angry shows. I don't want conventional programming on this network. I want counterculture. I want anti-establishment. I don't want your pain. I don't want your menopausal decay and death. I don't need you, Mac. Now get out of
me. You need me badly. Because I'm your last contact with human reality.
Then don't leave me. We are leaving here right now. Obviously, she cannot be controlled in this environment.
Nothing really happened between your daughter and the young man. It was innocent.
No thanks to you.
I think you're overreacting, Miss Crawford.
And I think you're underreacting, Mrs. Chadwick.
I drink.
Come with me.
Look, Hank, why don't you go tomorrow? We just met. When you run off like this, I feel like you're trying to get away from me.
You've been described as fairly ambitious. Arthur Penn, again, to quote him, said that you were crying out for fame, and your mother said that you were born with a drive because I think you were a premature baby.
You make me sound like a machine. I'm terrible. No, I don't know. I found that label being put on me a lot, the ambition, and I don't quite know the definition of it. I think that it may be confused with, if you see someone working very, very hard, and some people say professionally, they put that word on it sometimes. But if you see them really working with a great passion, it's possible sometimes to interpret that as, oh, how ambitious she is. She wants to be a star. When it could be that I love what I'm doing. You know, I think that both are a part of me. But the only thing I object to is when the ambition becomes the label.
Or when the ambition is seen to be ruthless.
Yes, well, I think
those two words are tied up in our scheme of things.
I'm afraid they are, yeah. And I think that is, I think, one of two sins to be ruthless that way, because that implies that you hurt someone else. I don't think that's anyone's right.
Doesn't it interest you that in this society, where ambition plays a very great part, and where people are, in one sense, supposed to be ambitious, if they're labeled ambitious, it's seen to be derogatory in a way?
Yes.
Because the ambition is always thought of as a bad thing, even though people admire ambitious people.
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange. I think because you get ambition is confused with going for a result, where what you've got to go for is the path to that result. It's like going to Europe. Your ambition is to get to Europe, so that many times what happens if you have that strong ambition is that you don't see anything of the trip to Europe. It's only when you get there, and the trip is what life is. The trip is what brings the enjoyment, the satisfaction.
As in life, as in air travel, getting there is half the fun. I think that's what
exactly.
They say.
Yeah.
Okay, so feel free to go, because this doesn't really have much to do about Faye, but I gotta get it out of the way. So, I want to give a huge shout out to Be Kind Rewind. She was the inspiration behind this video. I cited her in a couple of my sources, as you guys can see. And, like, honestly, she slays so hard. I love her videos. Her network video is the one that inspired this specifically, and I did cover some of the same stuff as her, but I think it's a little more different in, like, what we're trying to say. Also, I covered Mommy Dearest a little bit, but, babes, it's nothing compared to her Mommy Dearest video. So if you want to learn more about that, go watch her Mommy Dearest video. It's excellent. Okay. Also, I want to say thank you guys for fucking 100 subscribers. What the hell? Bro, I'm gagged. Like, I'm genuinely gagged. I cannot believe it. It's just so crazy to think that, like, people are seeing what I'm doing and, like, they like it, you know? Like, it's just so wild seeing all your comments and seeing just, like, how many eyes are on something that I made. It's truly, truly crazy to think about. I've been putting more work into my videos more and more. I think you can see that. The Frida video is better than the Gustin one, so y'all need to go watch that. Trust, it's better. And this hopefully will be even better than that. And if y'all keep showing me love, you know, I'm gonna keep putting in work. I am a full-time college student, but I love doing this, so I'm gonna continue to do it if y'all show me that you want me to. I might even buy a mic. I've been considering it. And if you want me to stop using my phone microphone, keep showing me love. I might spend the coin. Speaking of, you know, keep going with this, the Gustin video is the one that seems to be blowing up, and I feel like I'm getting a lot of subscribers that expect me to do that all the time. But to be honest, like, I just made that video about Gustin because I like Gustin. And I do enjoy art history, but I'm gonna be so real, I probably won't continue to make videos about art history. I like media and pop culture and film And I'm going to do stuff about that. And I'm going to do stuff about women. And, like, I'm going to make what I want to make at the end of the day. So, like, hopefully y'all can just stick along for the ride. And follow me on Letterboxd. I am going to add some of my reviews in this video, so hopefully you've already seen them. But, like, yeah, follow me on Letterboxd, you know? I love it. And I might have a video coming soon. I might have a Letterboxd video coming soon before the end of the year or right at the beginning of the new year. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this, that's really crazy. You're very real for that. And have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.